The tides are turning when it comes to exclusivity across platforms, because, well, I've long said that exclusives are bad for gamers and developers. They're only good for platform holders. It's taken a while for this to kind of catch on. Obviously, if a game has access to more platforms, it has access to a wider audience, it can sell more copies, and more revenue means bigger budgets, which means more after-sale content and bigger, better games. It's pretty common sense to me, but there's still some defenders of exclusivity, and that kind of narrative's being destroyed, even for the platform holders themselves at this point. Because for a while now, we've had Xbox games ported to PC, but Sony's been a little bit slow on the uptake, and that's why it's taken Gears of War 4 years to reach PC, but it's been flying off the shelves, and it turns out the reason why it was ported is because the developers themselves asked for it to. And when you actually have that many developers just demanding that Sony let them sell on other platforms, eventually they're going to give in. And this has been paying off in spades. As you see, just in the day it's been released, it's already hit 73,000 concurrent players, which is about 18th on the Steam's bestseller list, which isn't bad for a 4-year-old game. Especially as that 73,000 concurrents is probably, a couple of 100,000 in actual sales, because these are all people playing at the same time. And it only took them 4 people to actually convert it over to the PC. Yes, it took them 2 years, but only because there was only 4 people working on it. They couldn't even be bothered to put that many people on. Apparently, keep it lean and mean was the way here. I don't know what the planners say about that. Personally, I think if you can sell to more people and make more revenue, you should probably do that as fast as possible. But Sony is a little bit slow on the uptake so far. But if there's one thing which is likely to convince Sony that they should do this more often and faster in the future, then money talks. And we've already seen Xbox Game Pass take off incredibly for Xbox and PlayStation. They're really going to need something to compete with that, and that's going to mean they're going to have to start porting some more games over. And it's not just this which kind of destroys Sony's whole narrative or reason for keeping exclusives in the first place. Even Nintendo's at it, because Nintendo had Monster Hunter Rise as an exclusive as far back as March 2021, but it's just hit PC, and it's already hit 133,000 players concurrent on Steam, so several 100,000 sales, I think, is likely to say. Now, I know the Switch is an extremely popular console, but I somehow don't think that they're actually going to make up the revenue of 133,000 extra concurrent users, plus all the ones that are offline, just by keeping it stuck on Switch. So hopefully this is the tide turning. Hopefully the numbers speak for themselves, and more platforms realize that actually exclusives, they're not the best way of doing business, especially when it comes to PC, which doesn't compete with any of these platforms anyway. It's an entirely different audience who want an entirely different experience with entirely different peripherals. So he is hoping for a future where exclusives are either at least limited or preferably non-existent, just so everybody can make more money and everybody can have fun in the same games. But while Xbox has been porting games across to PC on day one, and PlayStation are now doing their own counter-moves, it's time for Xbox to fight back on that counter-move and try and take some ground away from them. And how have they done that? Well, Xbox Phil Spencer wants to ban everyone from his console and everywhere else just because they had some naughty words or something. It's a bit of a weird play, if you ask me. And while he admits that it would be a hard one to do, it's not one that he doesn't think is worthwhile. Speaking to the New York Times, he says, "Something I would love to be able to do, and this is a hard one in the industry, is when someone gets banned in one of our networks, is there a way for us to ban on all of them? Yes, just because Phil Spencer doesn't personally like what you sent in a DM to someone, he wants your entire game libraries across PC, PlayStation, Switch, and Xbox all banned immediately. Just ban you off all of them. Why not? I mean, just because one person doesn't like you somewhere else, that means your entire online profile of thousands of pounds worth of games should just go up in smoke. And you can never trust bans in the gaming industry. You see, unlike a ban of sort of Facebook, where if you get banned off Facebook, they don't want you to make another account. That's never been true in gaming, where if you get banned on a game once, all you have to do is buy the game again and you get round it. Yes, so that means that getting banned for this actually gives them a monetary incentive to treat you awfully. Now, obviously, if Xbox went around and just banned a load of people would now be angry at them and go somewhere else. Except if that ban list is now universal, in which case, what are you gonna do? What Phil Spencer is actually proposing here is a universal system where a load of people have got together just so they can ban you and make you buy all of your game library again. It seems like a pretty horrific future to me. So no, Phil Spencer, I don't really want any of that, and you can take that idea and shove it back under whatever rock you found it under. In honor of Scream 5, we've actually got another crossover event in a place I never honestly expected it. Yes, Ghostface is now coming to Among Us, and I don't know about anyone else, but that kind of looks a little bit sus to me. If you really want to appear like an innocent person who's definitely not murdering anyone, that's probably not the face to put on, but I suppose if everyone looks the same and takes the same skin, then we'll never know who's done it after all. Since its launch, Halo Infinite has come under fire for the prices of all their cosmetics and everything else, and sort of, I don't blame them. I don't think £8 for a couple of triangles on your head that have been hollowed out and probably took half an hour for a designer to make is really good value. But hey, it looks like cat ears, and that means it's worth £8 or something. But now Halo Infinite has listened to the absolute constant complaining from the community and is apparently reducing pricing across the board. But I don't think this is as good a news as it might appear, because it says we're going to begin rolling out changes of how we package and price items, and it starts next week. And to me, it sounds like a bit of a bait and switch. Oh, everything's going to be cheaper. But the only reason it's going to be cheaper is because we've taken them out of packages, is how it reads. Hopefully they do genuinely lower the prices of all the individual items, but when you say things like, we've been monitoring the discussions of the shop's bundles and pricing, where starting Tuesday, we will be starting to put individual items outside of the bundles. Yeah, so if you want the cat ears, now you might just be able to buy the cat ears on their own, rather than the cat ears and a load of stickers or something that nobody's interested in at all. So while they do say that due to community feedback, they will be reducing the pricing across the board, I hope they have just genuinely lowered the items pricing individually, rather than separated everything out so it still costs the same or more and gone, no, now you can buy the cat ears for £5 rather than £8, because it's still going to be a rip-off for a triangle that you've hollowed out in your lunch hour. Obviously, I have no problem with cosmetics or a cosmetic store, but I do think there is some kind of value in it, and that value comes down to how much effort you put into it and how cool it looks. And while obviously there is an element of something is worth what someone's willing to pay for it, when it comes to digital items that can just be sold over and over again, I do think you kind of have a duty to your customer base to try and make sure they get as much value as possible, rather than just trying to get as much money out of them as possible for as little work as you can physically put in. And Halo at the moment is definitely leaning towards the latter, in my opinion. Now, Dying Light 2 is one of my most anticipated games of the year, and it had a really strange controversy this week, which I didn't see coming and I still don't really understand. It started with this tweet, where they actually promised that people were going to get too much game for their money. That seems to be what people were complaining about. Yes, they said it was going to take 500 hours to complete, and that was almost as long as it would take to walk from Warsaw to Madrid. And people were complaining about this. I don't have 500 hours. I can't complete the game if I'm going to do this. And I don't believe nobody didn't understand this tweet. I don't believe anyone didn't know what this meant. Anyone that thinks that this game's going to have 500 hours of a main story quest has probably fallen out of the nearest tree and landed on their face. I can't think of any other explanation for it, and I don't know why this was a drama, but it was a drama that just almost appeared out of thin air. It was in all the gaming magazines and everything else, and it was completely fabricated for no reason. You see, Dying Light 2's main story is actually 20 hours long, and what the 500 hours was is if you're a completionist that went round and did all of the usual open world, find this box, collect 500 turtle hairs all from around the world that you get in all of that stuff, which very few people ever bother to do. Obviously, the story's going to be far, far shorter, and that's what most people are going to play. It didn't stop a massive amount of drama and just everyone raging about how long they were going to have to play the game and couldn't be bothered. And apparently, if you don't have time to 100% something, you're just not going to buy it. It was so confusing, and I still don't know really what the complaints were, but it did send Dying Light into a panic mode. They just started a flurry of tweets about how no, it's only going to take 20 hours. I mean, 80 hours if you actually want to finish the main story and all the side quests, which is actually really good value. If your main story is 20 hours and your side quests are another 60, that's a lot of bang for your buck, let alone the 500 hours, which I won't play because honestly, I've never been one for going around collecting random stuff around the map. But some people do enjoy it. And even after this tweet, it didn't seem to be enough for the mob, and they kept on talking about other things. We'll be committing to another 5 years of game support post-launch, which means more story DLCs, more events, more locations, and more in-game items. Now, one of the reasons that I don't generally trust tweets like this is exactly what you mean by 5 years of support. Technically, as long as the servers are on, you're supporting it. If one guy's working on story campaign, then you're doing that as well. So we don't know how much support over those 5 years it's actually going to get, but at least talking about it shows some kind of commitment, I guess. But at a time where the entire gaming press turned on them for absolutely no reason whatsoever, this tweet probably didn't hurt. And if this turns out to be true, that the game's getting 5 years of actual proper support, and they believe in gamers first, then hey, that's just a good sign. As we've seen with Phil Spencer, sometimes it's not gamers first, it's just ban as many gamers as possible first. So at least some companies are putting the right people at the front of their marketing. It feels a little bit weird to be talking about stories where, on the one hand, platform owners actually want to start banning people en masse from across the internet, while other people are like, oh, please, don't leave us, we'll support the game for 5 years. Well, this seems to be the world we're living in at the moment, where some people get it and just other people really don't. But for now, that's it from me. If you liked the video, press like and subscribe. More videos like this in the future, and let me know what you thought of the stories and down below. But for now, that's it from me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.